Welcome back, everyone, to America's Mom. I'm Sherronna Bishop, and I'm always bringing you the things that will help you protect your family, your property, and your freedom. You're going to find it always here with us. Remember, we are now coming to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 12 o'clock Central Time with incredible content, guys. And don't forget that we do have America's Mom and the Mister coming back to you almost on a daily basis. Check us out over on Facebook. Sometimes on X, we'll kind of figure that whole genre out. It's a new day in America for sure when we are no longer shadow banned, when we're actually able to get our message out, get our content out there. So thank all of you guys for continuing to stay here with us and continuing to share our message and make sure we're getting the word out there. There's a lot of hope right now. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. One of the things we've been so conscientious and critical of is that you don't get tired and exhausted and think, well, Trump's in office, so now I could just go live my life again. Part of our life always was supposed to be civic duty. It was always supposed to be watching out for policies that are going to harm you. Nobody likes politics. Everybody agrees it's pretty gross and disgusting, but policy will get you every single time. Policy is what shut our schools down. Policy is what is allowing for the hypersexualization of our children. Policy is what is stripping parent rights in Colorado and California and the majority of blue states across this country. Policy is what allows our elections to continue to be sorted and not completely straightforward and honest the way we Americans would like it to be. Policy will get you every single time. So, for that reason, we continue to bring these stories to you that we know you can do something about. You know that we do not like to share information that just makes you feel strangled and makes you feel that there's nothing you can do. There is always a way forward. There's always a path forward. And those are the stories we're going to continue to bring to you guys today. I want to remind you all also that we are going to be back in Romania this week. So we're going to be sharing a lot of great information there. There is actual global impact happening in Romania. And if you missed Alex Jones' rant this morning about America becoming a part of the Commonwealth group, I think it's worth taking a look at. I'm going to share it up on my X, so you may want to go take a look at it over there. We're going to get some real facts and real answers for you while we're over there in the EU. So I actually am quite curious. I don't really understand why we would want to join an organization that continues to promote, quote, democracy, but has no real democracy at play in any of their countries. I'm not sure exactly what the play is going to be there, but it does look like President Trump is going after Canada. I mean, the rumor mill is spinning right now. I don't know how the Canadians feel about that. And of course, Greenland, maybe we'll be taking that too. It's all very strategic as we look in light of China rising up and having their eyes set on America. They want to be number one. They want to be the global power. So we're going to see how all of that plays out. We don't get to go into it a lot today, but I do want to tease you with just a little bit of that. I need you to start doing your homework so you understand what's going on in America. There is no rest for the weary, friends, and especially for those who want to maintain our freedom. It requires due diligence every single day. So thank you guys. I know so many of you are regular, everyday, ordinary people who got involved in the fight because you were sick of seeing what the public health department, what kind of amazing power they could wield over your business, over your children, over your day to day life, even over your travel. I think for me, when I learned that there were checkpoints happening in America and the public health department was blocking people from travel, I thought we were really in a serious situation where we better start educating the public on their responsibility or we will not be free any longer. So, last week we shared with you guys what was happening in Colorado once again and the diminishing and stripping of parental rights in that state. It's very similar to what's happened in California, but it's way more extreme. And I love that President Trump is drawing attention to Colorado again today, talking about the horrible picture that they put up of President Trump. It's very fitting because Colorado is at war with President Trump, in case anybody missed it. And since Jared Polis does continue to be the chair of the Governors Association, he heads up the Governors Association of America. I want to continue to remind people that the head of the Governors Association of America is at war with President Trump, and every slight he can give him, he absolutely does it. Last week, when we talked with Erin Lee at Erin for Parents on X, she outlined another new bill that is designed to strip parents' rights. It's very horrifying. Since we aired that show last week, friends, I want to tell you, we've received several more letters from parents who are in agreement. Not only have their children been taken from them, in a sense, it's almost like a kidnapping. It's an agreed upon kidnapping by some of the school districts there, especially on the Eastern Slope, but not just for the sake of grooming and the sexualizing, as we covered last week, but also for sports, for for being able to give guidance and direction to other people's children on what sports, what pathway they would follow once they left high school. It's a crazy breaking story. We posted it up on our Facebook page. Go check it out, because these policies, again, they come home to roost. We think we don't want to be a part of the conversation. Only about really 20% of this country really votes on a consistent basis on your local elections, which are your most important. The most significant elections that we have are local. But if you don't do anything about it, if you won't participate in it, then you're going to continue to be the factor, the reason that we do not get to enjoy, really nice things like, I don't know, freedom, like our children being raised up in an innocent environment. I want to share with you what is going on in the state of Texas. They are definitely leading the way right now. We're posting all sorts of things about Texas to help you in your own home state to get around the indescribable, disgusting work that's taking place with these leftist maniacs who continue to want to have access to groom and sexualize your children. I want you to take a listen to this video before we bring on our special guest today. Senator Angela Paxton is going to join us in just a few moments, but I want you to hear this video. And I want you to understand this video is from 3 years ago. Play it for me.
A sexually explicit book discovered last month on a Keller ISD library database created a firestorm that came to a head here tonight. Upset parents called on the school board to remove other similar material or resign.
Lead this district, protect our children, or get out of the way.
During a raucous meeting, parents brought signs and openly cheered, as well as booed those defending and those adamantly opposed to adult-themed books available to Keller ISD students.
And please stop the sexual grooming of our children by these types of books and illustrations.
It is my job to teach my kids about sex. It's y'all's job to help teach about reading, writing, and arithmetic.
A sexually explicit comic called Gender Queer was pulled last month from an online Keller ISD library database. State Republican leaders, including Governor Abbott, have called for an audit of all school library books and the prosecution of those school employees who allow underage students to access them. Parents who brought a wagon full of some school library books they call pornographic support that idea.
You want to know what it has in it? I'm not going to read it, but I'll tell you. Sodomy, rape, and drug use.
Thank you. Wow. Senator Paxton is joining us here on America's Mom, thankfully bringing a bill forward to protect the innocence of our children. Senator Paxton, thank you for being with us on America's Mom.
Hey, thank you, Sherronna. It's great to be here, and I appreciate you helping me get out the message about Senate Bill 13 and what we're trying to do in Texas.
Well, you listen to that video and it seems like common sense that you would not want to have material. And by the way, gender queer is just the tip of the iceberg. I have a whole book here full of books that are available in our libraries, both online and in person, not only throughout the state of Texas, but throughout the country. It seems common sense that we wouldn't want our kids to have access to material that Dr. Ahmed, one of the greatest brain doctors of our time, has said will absolutely destroy their brains and ruin their potential for a bright future. So what are we not getting here? What are we missing that these books are so important to the left to keep in our schools and our libraries?
Well, you bring up the idea of common sense, and Sherronna, you know that my background before I came into the Texas Senate, I'm a mom of 4 kids that are all now grown. I've got grandchildren now, but I was a teacher and a school counselor for 20 years. I'm the first educator elected to the Texas Senate in more than 20 years. But because of that background, when I first heard about this issue and started seeing these books, that what I saw there was it was sort of a deja vu experience for me, because that's what happened. There were parents bringing this stuff to me, and I call this type of legislation, like the different buckets of legislation I carry, I call this bucket, "Don't make me come down there." And but I have now. So and we did last session. You know, we 2 years ago we were in session and we were dealing with these issues. There were two bills, Senate Bill 900, which many of your folks probably know about, the Reader Act, and then I'm sorry, House Bill 900, the Reader Act, and then the Senate Bill 13, similar to the bill that we've got in front of us again. We passed Senate Bill 13 and the Reader Act 900 in the Senate. Both of those bills passed. In the House, unfortunately, only House Bill 900 passed, and Senate Bill 13, which was our bill that put requirements on school boards, was never given a hearing. And so that's why we're back here. In fact, my staff refers to this as Senate Bill 2.0, because we're doing the same thing over again, and we need the House to step up. There were good things in the Reader Act, but we had concerns with the bill last session that there were certain things that potentially were going to have trouble in the courts. That is what happened. So it's very unfortunate that we didn't have both bills pass. We did get some standards in place, and so we're thankful for that. But Senate Bill 13 puts requirements on school boards to get sexually explicit material out of our school libraries. And very importantly, it requires that they have a parent council, advisory council, to be part of the review process, looking at books, and that things must be reviewed and approved before they can be purchased.
And the understanding that most parents have when these books are introduced to the library is that that is already happening. So I guess I wonder who looked at genderqueer, for example, and said, this is a really great idea. This is going to be so great for, as if we had let that video roll on, a mother stands up and says, it's very important for my children to have access to LGBTQIA material because of their choices in life. Other parents would say, I don't need to know your child's sexuality, and neither does anybody else. And that is your responsibility as a parent. So, who would have thought it was a good idea to literally have soft porn in the schools? And how do they get away with that? How does a school get away with not being charged with indecency to a minor?
Well, you know, how we got to where we are is a multifaceted question. You know, some of these school districts are massively large. One of the things that we realized as we were looking into the issue is that many of the libraries buy the books in bundles. These bundles are award-winning books, recommended by different lists. And I think part of what happens over time is that, you know, you had a point in time where people had good trust in the library staff, they had good trust in their school board members. And so I think what has happened is that over time, things were happening sometimes under people's noses. They didn't realize it. Other people saw it, didn't bring it up. Other people were helping make it happen, right? I mean, there's the whole mix of things, but the reality is that now we have these books in our libraries. Many of these materials are donated, and so they don't go through the procurement process. They're just received and put on the shelf. And so that's one of the things we really want to correct with Senate Bill 13 is to create clear processes for how books are acquired, how they are approved, including parental input into the review process. And then also to give parents some other rights that they don't actually necessarily have right now, which is the ability to, it's possible that there end up being some books that some parents are okay with, some parents are not, that maybe still meet the standards. Every parent has the right to protect their own child. And so it does allow parents to give a list of books that their child is not allowed to check out and that sort of thing. So, you know, you and I might even have different opinions about what we would want one of our kids to read, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, parents have to have the final say, and they ought to be involved in the process.
That is one of the things we've been asking for. You know, once parents found out during COVID, one of the greatest blessings in that regard, parents were hearing in the other room what their children were being taught and said that, wait a second.
Yeah.
You have, of course, hypersexualization through these sex ed classes and courses that have become so radicalized. They go from a negative to now a positive. I don't know why we're teaching children in high school how to have an orgasm. That is exactly what's going on. And then you provide this kind of consumption for a teenager who doesn't know, or even it's not even just teenagers, guys. This is elementary school. These are in elementary schools. At least they have
Yeah.
access through the online libraries as well in elementary schools. But parents have to be a part of this. So, how likely, what's the next steps for this bill? How can parents be supporting to make sure, again, just as you said, every parent wants the right to dictate what material their children receive. But I do think we can agree we don't want them exposed to pornography. So, what's the next steps and how can we help see this bill get through?
Well, we have passed this through committee. We have passed it off the Senate floor last week. So now the bill goes over to the Texas House of Representatives. The speaker is the one who is in charge of referring the bill to a committee. Most likely it would go to the Public Ed Committee. The chairman of that committee, Chairman Buckley, is the next kind of gatekeeper as to whether the bill is heard or not. And then the committee members. So I would encourage all of the Texas moms out there to please go to the Texas legislature website and look and see who your representative is, first of all. But I would encourage all of you to email the speaker or call the speaker's office, ask them to refer Senate Bill 13, and then Chairman Buckley's office to ask him to hear the bill in committee and to pass the bill out, and then to look at the committee members. It's most powerful when you are a constituent of that senator or that House member, but it's good to hear from everyone. I would also encourage everyone to call their House representative to encourage them to pass the bill when it does get to the floor, to show up to testify in committee when the bill is heard in committee. All of those things really matter. And you know, the other thing, Sherronna, I was thinking about as you were talking about how important it is for parents to mobilize, you know, this bill should pass. We need to get this through the House. I think there are a lot more eyes on it in the House now than there were last session. So I'm encouraged by that, but we're not going to stop until it's done. I know Governor Abbott will sign this bill, but when this bill goes into effect, this bill is very, very dependent on the engagement of parents on these parent advisory councils. One of the objections to the bill from some folks on the left was, well, it's too hard to get people involved. And what we have maintained is, listen, we have heard incredible response and reaction about the bill, about the issue to protect our children. And so when we get the bill passed, we need the moms in Texas to step up and volunteer to be part of these advisory councils so they can actually be the eyes and the ears that are watching this stuff and the hearts that are filtering what our kids are going to see.
Well, with you having been an educator and this having been your world, I can't thank you enough for understanding that this isn't advancing education. This kind of
No.
content is not advancing learning, rigor, a bright, happy future for our kids. It's doing the exact opposite. And I just really appreciate that you're coming out so publicly in support of parents, of course, and the innocence of our kids. SB 13 does need to pass. With all the friction happening in the House right now, people are going to need to get on the phones and make sure that their representatives stay focused on their job, which is to definitely serve and protect their communities. Thank you so much, Senator
Absolutely.
Paxton, for being with us.
Thank you, Sherronna, and thanks to all the moms and dads who are listening to the show. We're counting on you, and we're going to do this together.
Thank you so much. It really is, when it comes down to it, it has to be you and I. That's who's going to get this ball done. Thank you so much, Senator Paxton. SB 13, guys, go look it up, check it out. We're going to post it up on all of our social media as well, and we'll also be putting up the representative list. So we're going to start making those phone calls. You'll be hearing from us. Friends, before we move into our next guest today, I want to remind you again, nothing happens here without you. It requires participation. If we want to take our country back, guess what? We have to mobilize, we have to plan, we have to make conscientious decisions that we're going to stay very, very mission focused. Just as Senator Paxton was saying, The only way that these bills work, the only way we protect our children is by being involved. Well, same with our country. The quickest way to get America back on her feet is to make sure we are involved in the process. And the best way to do that is to be shopping with American manufacturers. I want to share one of my favorite ones with you guys today. The reason why is because this company, number one, has been around for over 40 years. It's tried, tested, and proven, and has only gotten more pro America with every passing year. During COVID, they were fully operating here in America, manufacturing here in America, and they had zero disruptions in their deliveries to Americans. I love also the idea that we are always mission focused. We want the cleanest products in our home. It's very Maha centered. It is clean, no hormone disruptors, no endocrine disruptors, long before it was cool, you guys, long before RFK showed up on the stage there and said everybody better get clean homes and get the toxins out. So I know these products are amazing. Everything you need that you use in, on, and around your body. Over 500 everyday use products that are clean and safe for every member of your family, from your pets to your children, and of course, you. From your supplementation, your shampoo, your toothpaste, everything you know and love every single day that you use all the time, you're going to find it right here with our American manufacturer. Go to shopwithpatriots.com. Sign up for more information today. You're going to want to enroll with this incredible company because they, again, are putting America first. They've always put your health at the forefront, and they will continue to put American workers at the forefront as well. Go to shopwithpatriots.com. Go check them out today. I know a lot of people have health goals going on right now, so make sure you check out my special. It is my favorite. I'm sorry, I talk about it all the time, but it is my favorite, especially for so many of us who are eating our feelings during the Biden administration. Check out my little yellow happy peel. DM me for more information on that. I will share. I will share that information with you. Shopwithpatriots.com. Go check it out today. Before we bring our next guest on, and I think he's going to be on in just a moment here, I want to update you guys on a couple of things that have been happening in the media. As we're gearing up and getting ready for primary elections, you, again, I love what Senator Paxton said. You have to be a part. You have to be involved. The reality is only about 20% of the public actually votes in their local elections. And yet, when you look at bills like this, SB 13 that we're talking about today, when you look at a bill like that, you realize it's going to require local elections. You have to vote. You need to be making sure you're participating in your local representative vote. And as we look at the House right now in Texas, it's kind of a mess right now. We've got 30 Republicans who went and jumped on board with the Democrats and elected a speaker that does not represent the majority of Texans. They've also have a parliamentarian who was the former Obama parliamentarian. Crazy. They had the majority. They basically gave it up. I don't know if this was like a little childish display. I'm not sure on the inner workings of what happened there, but I do know that those 30 people who went and sided with the Democrats need to be primaried. And that's a local election. You're going to be voting in the primaries here very soon. And we want to make sure that we have our elections wrapped up and that we know that you're going to be turning out. We know that the majority of our conservatives in the state, Christians, conservatives, parents, you guys all have to be showing up. There has to be, just this is my line in the sand. I will always show up to vote because I know that local elections carry the most power and impact my life the most on a daily basis. And what I really see being in this position is that people need help on a local level all the time. But they don't know their elected officials. They didn't participate in elections. They didn't help during the primary process, so they have no access. They don't even know who to call. They don't even know what to do. And so for that reason, you have to start getting involved. You can't sit back. You can't afford to. So primaries are just around the corner. You're going to see people gearing up for the U.S. Senate races, for more congressional races, and of course for your local offices as well. And you're going to need to be a part. I want to encourage everybody to go to lindellplan.com and go get signed up for ongoing information, both on our election processes, what is happening there to secure our elections across this country, and also for updated information on what is happening to secure our elections. What important races should we be taking a look at and participating in? While you're there, go to causeofamerica.org and sign up to be a volunteer. That is how we win, is by being a part of the process. And I'm telling you right now, I'll just be very brutally honest with you. I quit every day. Every day I'm like, do I really want to be doing this? This political thing is really, really ugly. It does. It gets very ugly. It can be very, very cruel. And for those who are able to endure and stick in and stay with the fight is pretty incredible because it can just be so debilitating almost to see the vitriol that people slam and throw around, not remembering that, even politicians can be real people. They can be, it does happen. But I think the biggest reason why is because policy impacts us. It hurts our lives. It takes the innocence from our children. We see kids abused online now. We see things happening literally online because they're being filmed in classes due to the policies that are being implemented in your hometown and in your state. And so we have to be there in order to cast our vote and make it count by participating in the process. There's no other way around it. And I dislike that as much as anybody, but our founders recognized this was just going to be a responsibility, a due diligence, as we spoke about at the beginning, that we have to take on. We have to shoulder this no matter how ugly it gets, no matter how difficult and brutal it gets. I think you can fire yourself each day, just make sure to rehire the next day, that you have to get back out there. And we teach this to our children. I also think that so many of us got involved in politics and policy so late, it wasn't a habit for us. It's taken a tremendous amount of mental and physical strength to wage this battle every day, day in and day out. But if we raise up our children, we raise them on the fundamentals, the founding principles. Obviously, God, our family, and our country, our Constitution. Teach them the Bill of Rights. Make sure they understand the founding of this nation and by whom the foundation rests, which is the Lord Jesus Christ. They're going to have a lot easier time defending it. So these aren't things we want to wait for when our kids are 25 and off in a liberal college somewhere and they're teaching them the things that matter to them. That's what's happened. We've acquiesced. We've given up. We've given up a lot of what was ours to teach our children to authorities that are not aligned with us. They do not carry our values. Very interestingly, I want to point this out. Jeff Clark, who was the former assistant attorney general under Bill Barr, wrote an incredible piece. It's actually the first public statement I have seen him make since President Trump was elected. Jeff Clark has been under incredible duress by the bar. They have tried to remove his law license repeatedly because he stood up for President Trump and he looked at the constitutional pathway forward after the November 2020 election. And for that reason, he's been targeted, maligned. It's unbelievable. But he wrote an exceptional piece yesterday on X and he talked about the pipeline from elementary school to these universities and how they tag and figure out which kids they will be harnessing and then pushing forward into these particular slots that have become very leftist leaning, like your nonprofit legal services. I'm trying to think what the pro bono, thank you, pro bono services. Those have all literally had a funneling pipeline for the last 20 plus years of very leftist trained individuals from elementary to university who go into those positions. And that is why we have such a difficult time advancing our constitutional principles and rights in this country, because we have raised up a generation of communists who are sitting in those positions and they are not asserting your rights. Okay. They're asserting their own agenda. The the piece he wrote is incredible. Go check it out. Jeff Clark on X. And I think we'll actually do an in-length review tomorrow on exactly what he wrote because it's completely pertinent to what we're discussing here today. From Angela Paxton and SB 15 coming out of the Senate, it's in the House right now to protect our children from being groomed by this disgusting material and having no adults have any kind of situational awareness that kids shouldn't be exposed to this stuff, to where we're going to go next, securing our elections, but also recognizing the tremendous consequences of elections. Last week, we had John Sarah on with, actually, maybe it's been a week and a half ago now already. We had John Sarah on with us. He is a Christian who has come out of Syria. He still has family over there that are facing the genocide of all of these minority religious groups by this radical jihadi style government that has been implemented there, and they're not done. They're still pilfering, they're still murdering. They're claiming they're not. They're claiming everything's great. They have an audit basically going on in Syria to determine that everybody's happy and everything's great and it's all fine, but that's not the reality. I also want to point out I have not seen anything on social media, anything ongoing on Syria at all for at least the last week since we had John Sarah on. I asked him to come back on today to give us an update because, again, for me, everything we're experiencing, the policies, murder, war, tyranny, all these things, they come back to our elections. And in America, we need to be having real elections because the the outpouring of stolen elections or fake elections or selections of candidates who are advancing this globalist satanic agenda are playing out in people's real lives. People have died. A lot of people have died this last year under the Biden regime because of what they were allowing, what that election cost the world. I don't know that we'll ever know the full number. I just don't know. But this is definitely one of the most devastating things happening right now in Syria. John Sarah joins us, and John, thank you again so much for being with us. I think last time we had you on audio, so it's great to see you here. Can you give us an update and just share with us what is happening with your family and in Syria as you know now?
Good afternoon, Sherronna. Good afternoon to anybody who's listening. Thank you so much for having me. Unfortunately, things have not improved in Syria since the beginning of the massacre on March 7th. The militia forces of Al Jawani and his government uh, were instructed, after all the international backlash, to stop filming their massacres.
Mm.
So they haven't stopped killing people, they just stopped filming that. According to the Syrian Observatory of Human Rights, they have properly documented 60 massacres with 1,642 people dead. That's well documented. The numbers may be a lot higher than that, because, as I said, they are no longer filming those atrocities. We've heard stories about mass graves and dumping bodies to the Mediterranean to hide the evidence. They are also going door to door, asking people to either be quiet, or if they ever share anything with authorities or with any investigators, to not share the real story. Uh, Again, being threatened that if they do, they will join all those people who died. And so the situation is still very dire. I know that every single person that I talk to, they are absolutely horrified. I've been getting messages sometimes during the night. As you know, there's a time difference between Syria and the United States. I've been getting messages. I would wake up to messages saying, "Hey, they just entered the next village or the next town. If you don't hear from me, please don't let my death go to waste. Please let people know what's going on." And this is horrific. It's unbelievable what's going on in there right now. So we have full faith and full trust in the Trump administration and President Trump. We ask for some kind of international protection for all minorities. I know we heard from um, the Department of State last week, and I think they urged the Syrian government, quote unquote, if you can call it government, to include all minorities and to move to a civilian kind of government. But uh, this is what many people don't know. These people will lie to your face. They will tell you that they will do something, but they will not do it. They will just keep buying time. They use democracy sometimes to get to where they need to. And once they do, they will burn those bridges. And so this is something that we should be aware of, and we should be very cautious of here in the United States as well. Any situation where we see people protesting, and we've all seen people protesting against Israel last year. People will use our democratic values and our social values to get their agenda through using our systems. But if they are in power, trust me, none of that will be afforded to us.
What you're saying right now makes a lot of sense in that they're putting on a front. I can't help but think that the State Department in a small way is kind of as well putting on a little bit of a front. It's a very, you know, difficult situation there in Syria. There's a lot of players who want to have their hand in it outside of the United States. Is there anyone that's offering relief there? When you and I spoke, Russia was the only country that was, extending some kind of escape to, I think they could come and reside in their in their plane chambers. I mean, it was just kind of silly, but it was at least something. They were offering some kind of respite. Is anyone else stepping up in the region to truly offer some kind of care, some kind of escape? Who is helping in that region? Because a letter, strongly worded letter from the State Department, doesn't seem to be very impactful right now.
No, it doesn't, and unfortunately, nobody is helping out. Most of the Middle Eastern news outlets are completely covering up on what's going on. They don't want to, expose the Jelani government. They feel like they have to stand by that government. Turkey obviously is the one who pushed that government to be in place, and they also don't have any interest in showing what's going on. I do believe that right now the only players who may be impactful are Israel and Russia, and I do have my own thoughts on Russia, but honestly, I feel like Russia has been, um, you know, sort of keeping the peace with Israel when it was in full control or in mostly full control of the country during the Assad regime. Again, no, I don't want to be misconstrued as I'm supporting or was supporting the Assad regime. I've been opposed to the Assad regime since 2012. But all I'm saying is, there is no pure evil or pure goodness out there. So, despite the fact that Russia has done many bad things, there are some good things that could be, we could use Russia for.
Hmm.
And so, at least in my own view, I think it was a mistake to antagonize Russia when the real enemy there was China. I believe that um, Russia and the Russian people may be open to an alliance with the United States, somewhat an alliance with the United States. And I think if we can do that, it would help us in the war against China, which is the bigger enemy out there.
Is
So again, I have my own thoughts, and trust me, I am not in love with Putin
Mhm.
or his politics or his war on Ukraine. That was a disaster on many levels, and I know it firsthand because I had people there who were in Ukraine and who were displaced by the war. All I'm saying is that the politics is a bigger game than people try to make it sound like or look like or simplify it to be like. And I think being the United States, um, there is a massive weight to what the U.S. can do, even if it doesn't intervene, directly in a
Mhm.
conflict like the one that's going on in Syria. I know we went on now on like different topics or different subjects, but again, my opinion here is some kind of collaboration between the U.S. and Russia and Israel could be helpful to protect those minorities, and in return, Russia could be very helpful in our, more strategic goal to, put some limits to the Chinese influence on the world.
Well, destabilization is definitely the name of the game, and that's what they're doing there in Syria. And it is allowing for a vacuum, as we keep seeing this happen. Every time a government is taken out, there's a vacuum, and somebody far worse comes in, and then we start seeing the murders. We start seeing the killing happens. It literally is the same story over and over and over again. So destabilization is a real key that communism needs to spread. And I would say any of these dictatorial governments like you're experiencing in Syria, there's no interest there in freedom. There's no interest there in quote democracy. And that word is honestly just such a felt word for me at this point because it doesn't mean what they say it means. It's like you said, it's a covering to go ahead and exploit again the resources of a country or the people in a country for whatever the end goal is. And in Syria, what do you think is the end goal of the Jelani regime? What do you think they're trying to do if they kill everybody and then they're at odds with a country like Russia, who does have influence over China, and who knows what China wants to do in that region as well? What is their end goal? I mean, is this really just a short sighted, we don't like these people, they're not Muslims, we're going to kill them all? Or is there something more at play here?
So if you actually follow their teachings, political Islam, uh, it calls for an absolute control over the government and all the government establishments and entities, and basically turn a country that is or was secular, that is very rich culturally, like Syria, to an Islamic state. Obviously, that is their end game. They, from everything that I've seen and everything that I've read, these guys are following the Muslim Brotherhood, textbook for ruling minorities. So, what they're doing with minorities, they don't necessarily need to kill all of them. They just need to kill enough to subdue all the others and make sure that they are living under an extremist Islamic state. Um, I did mention this the last time I was on your show, and let me repeat it again. The danger to that is this ideology transcends borders. If this is allowed to happen in Syria, Syria will not only become the next Afghanistan, it will become way worse. And we can see today a lot of fighters from different places, from Chechnya, from the Uyghur Chinese Muslim population, from Tunisia, from Egypt, from different places. And there are videos documenting all of that. They're all coming to Syria, under the pretense that this is going to be the core of a new Islamic caliphate. Especially if you read history, and I'm pretty sure that you do, and a lot of your viewers do, right after the first four caliphs in Islam, the first Islamic empire, which is called the Umayyad Empire, took Damascus as its own capital. The only difference here is it is debatable whether the Umayyads were true Muslims or not. A lot of people think that they were a lost sect from Christianity. And you can see that with the fact that a lot of Christians back then had political positions, and even Muawiyah, who was the caliph back then, he had his own advisor and his own doctor were both Syrian Christians back then. So um, the problem here is that people read only half of what's in history, but not all of it. So those people right now, they're calling for the Umayyad Caliphate to rise back, uh, being that they have controlled Damascus once more. But they didn't read that the Umayyad Caliphate was not what they are trying to do right now.
So they're trying to they don't have any understanding of what it was or what it was like compared to what they're doing right now, because right now is just devastation. How are they going to have an economy? How are they going to have commerce? How are they going to provide for their people? How are they going to have the fertility that there once was? How are they going to do that on the trajectory they're on right now? Is that possible? Is there commerce we don't know about? Is there something we're missing here?
No, there isn't actually. So they don't think strategically like you and I and a lot of viewers think. All they want, all they believe in, is that there is a supremacy in creating an Islamic caliphate, and that supremacy kind of precedes any other notion, including any strategic objectives or any strategic goals like alliances. In their eyes, reviving the Umayyad Caliphate that once ruled Syria, but also most of northern Africa and even Spain. That is the ultimate goal. They want to retake all those lands and revive that caliphate. And once they do, they don't really need to interact with the rest of the world if they don't have to, because such an empire will probably be, at least in their minds, self sustaining.
John, your family is still there, and we have reached out to organizations that hopefully can be helpful. Have they given you any updates? How are you feeling about their well-being right now?
Thank you so much for all the help that you have been providing, and I know you're continuing to do so. We're exploring several avenues at the moment to see if we can get them out. That's the ultimate goal that we're working towards here. We did have some, I want to say, optimistic news, and we're trying to explore those avenues right now. Um, it still isn't easy to get anybody out of Syria at the moment, and so um, again, I would urge anybody who can help to please maybe contact you directly on your show and let us know if there is anything that we haven't explored so far or we could explore to get them out. These are good people, good Christians. They were born Christians, just like myself and my family. Um, we do believe that the Christians of Syria are descendants of the original Christians who believed in Jesus Christ and his disciples 2,000 years ago. So the numbers of our people are dwindling. There is only 400,000 people left of the Syrian Christian community back home in Syria, and they are under constant threat. And it's just it tears me to pieces when I see those videos and when I see those pictures. Last week, just to give you an example of how horrible the situation is. Last week, there were a couple of vans that entered a Christian area and they were calling people to convert to Islam. Now, right now, they're just calling for people to convert to Islam. But ultimately, again, if you follow the teachings of Al Qaeda and ISIS and radical Islam in general, that will not be afforded later on because people should have, according to their teachings, one of three options: either convert to Islam, pay a higher tax, which is called al jizya, or die by the sword. And that happened a few times throughout the Syrian history, and I'm afraid that we are looking at another time of those mass conversions for people just to avoid dying. And as you know, the economic situation in Syria is pretty dire. So I'm pretty sure that nobody can afford the higher tax at the moment.
Well, or to leave the country or to defend themselves. There's no provision there. I did see, and I wanted to have, are you familiar with the Clarion Project?
No, I'm not.
Well, one of the things when you were on last time, we were talking about the prolific threats in America for terrorist acts. And the Clarion Project, if people don't know about this organization, you should know about them. They are just an incredible team in the states that have provided a ton of information on what would be terrorist acts by radical Islamists in America. And recently, one of their primary members was just advanced. His name is Rudy Atala, and he was just has assumed the role as director of counterterrorism, which is very, very critical for us in America. I wanted you to know about this because you pointed out perfectly last time that these things don't stay abroad. They don't stay over there in their corner of the world. We allowed so many people into this country who we had no idea what they were doing. Ben Bergquam did a phenomenal job. Um, uh, so many others also. I'm trying to think of a couple others that demonstrating that we had actual known terrorists coming into our country, Islamic terrorists coming into our country, preparing to do these acts of terrorism on our ground. And I think that this move, because the Clarion Project is very familiar with radical Islam, what it looks like, what they do, how they act, and they've been working with our agencies for a very long time. One of the good guys, at least I can say. And now that they are being moved in this position to be able to spot and disseminate these cell organizations here in America, I was very encouraged by that. But again, it doesn't save those who are abroad who are experiencing this right now. And I think what we're asking for right now too is it's Christianity, it's Christendom right now. Those of us who have access, who can connect people, who can bring resources and tools, we're asking you to do that right now because this is 2025. It's shocking to me, John, that in 2025 we're having wars like 1,000 years ago. We're having, this jihadi takeover in areas of the world that we're finally modernizing, that we're, at least advancing some type of freedom, self-determination, a little bit more independent thinking, things that we really covet in Christianity. What God has given to us, self-determination, I think is the greatest gift after Jesus Christ, that we get to choose what we do. And to be in 2025 witnessing what's happening in Syria right now, and then seeing that at large, mainstream media is saying nothing. The American government is sending strongly worded letters and potentially, as crazy as it seems, and you pointed out, Russia might be the best asset we have in order to fight this regime.
You're absolutely right, and that's why I keep repeating. It's not out of love for Russia or out of forgiving what Russia did, but I think in politics, it's the art of the possible, and so you do what you can do with what's available, and be it as it is, Russia has still has some presence in Syria. Russia also, despite everything else, is an Orthodox Christian country, and it could have an interest. It could have an interest in protecting the Orthodox Christians and other minorities in Syria. I'm not entirely sure if they do or they don't, but I would assume that they do. And again, given the bigger strategic goal that is subverting China's influence, I do think that strategically, if Russia was on the West side, then we can deprive China from using Russia against us. And so, the way I see it from a political standpoint only and strategic standpoint only, I do think that what President Trump is doing by trying to kind of diffuse the situation with Ukraine. I know some people try to portray it as if he's taken Russia's side. I don't think so. I think he is thinking strategically about the future. We have a bigger fish to fry, and that is China, and therefore, he's doing what he's doing, to advance that goal. Now, back to the Christians of Syria, I think such an agreement or such an alliance could be helpful to the Christians over there. I also don't want to discount Israel's influence in the region. Israel has been extremely helpful in protecting the Druze minority in the southern in the south of Syria. And I do think that if Israel is interested, and I think they are, they could also provide some help and some protection to the other minorities as well. Um, yeah.
We haven't heard a whole lot. Yeah, we haven't heard a lot from Israel. I know there was some conjecture at the beginning of the war there in Syria when everything was initially happening and Said was being removed, but we really haven't heard much more from them. It seems like they would be a huge benefit. They're right there in the region, and to be able to, again, you're not in this particular case, you're not offering rescue to people who aren't willing to work, who aren't being productive members of society. You're not just taking in third world people who don't bring a lot of benefit. I don't know how else to say it. I'm over there often enough and watching what's happening in the EU and what's happening in my own country. And there's just when you have an onslaught of people who don't share your culture and aren't equipped to work and can't contribute anything, it is just very devastating to the country at large. So in this particular case, that's not the situation. To bring Christians in from Syria over to Israel for safety for now, for sanctuary for now, I don't think it would be a devastating move, do you?
No, I don't. And you're absolutely on point here when you mentioned the education and being productive members of society. I'll very quickly share this with you. I was born and raised in Damascus, and um, as a minority in Syria, Christians knew that they didn't have the chance to be part of government because that was basically taken over by al-Assad government and his beneficiaries. And neither could they be labor because our numbers are small. And so I remember there was a massive focus on education within my family and within most of the Christian families that I know of in Syria. So if you notice, and I don't think we have any statistics, but most Christians in Syria are highly educated. Many of them have PhDs and master's degrees, and they have been extremely neutral uh, politically because uh, we basically knew that we are not a big force on the ground. So we had what we cannot do with our political weight. We had to do with our education. And so you're absolutely right. If Israel takes them in, those would be an asset. And they do share the Western and the Israeli values in general, based on Judeo-Christian values. And so they will be productive members of society, and they will integrate very well within the, any Western culture or any Israeli culture pretty quickly.
John, Sarah, thank you so much for coming back on to give us an update and give us something to continue to be praying about. If it was us, guys, if it was our family, if it was our people, we would be begging for the rest of the world to take notice and to be praying and find a pathway of salvation. John, Sarah, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Sherronna, and thank you for all the viewers who are tuning in. Thank you.
In this day and in this age, it's shocking to think we still have this sort of mentality going on, that we seriously have people who are wielding to the biggest bat wins mentality. It just never changes, does it? That is the human heart, I think, in full display. The biggest bat wins, the victor takes all in spite of what it costs in innocence and in life. It's so tragic, but we are definitely calling on those who do have the resources, who do have the connections, and who can help, who can step in and help. I know Glenn Beck is mobilizing right now, and I am hopeful that there will be many more people who are willing to put their resources where their mouth is and help to rescue those who, there's no one to save them. There's no one to save them. And within Christianity, within Christendom, this is our calling to step up and help one another. And I think if we can, we should. So please message me if you have information, if you have connections, if you have a pathway forward to help begin rescuing these families out of Syria. And I think before we end our time together today, again, I just can't stress enough. When I very first started getting involved in politics, it was not because of politics. It was because policy came for me. I experienced policy firsthand. It was devastating. And I realized if I don't participate, I'm going to be a victim of policy over and over and over. It is our job, you and me, American citizens, to hold our government accountable, to make sure when people are elected into office, and we'll just say elected, but you know how I feel about the majority of it, that from there, we hold them accountable. We make sure they're there to serve. We make sure that they're there to protect, as they said they would, our Constitution, our freedom, our rights enshrined by God. And if we're not willing to do that, then we're going to continue to watch it dissipate and disappear. It's not about the Californians moving to your state. It's about you not taking a stand, you not facing the public, you not going to the meetings, you not holding your elected officials accountable, you not even knowing your constitutional protections and what they are. We have to educate ourselves, guys. An educated populace is very hard to overcome. And so, in this situation, we can see where we're at. This feels so far away. Syria feels so far away. What's happening to them is so far away. But 400,000 Christians are going to be enduring intolerable conditions because of policy. And it just so happens that the policy of jihad is to dominate or kill those who will not submit. On that note, please remember, keep it in the very front of your mind that all that is necessary for evil to prevail is for good men and women like you to do absolutely nothing. In fact, the darkness is banking on it. We'll see you guys back here on Wednesday.